Today we are making some apple cinnamon sugar cookies. So these are perfect for rollout cookies as well. These are just some drop cookies I made as an example with the recipe. These turned out so good, and I think they're the perfect flavor for fall apple picking, warm, cozy, cinnamon spice, all those good things. The recipe is in the description if you'd like the exact measurements, but come along with me and we'll make these cookies. So we are starting these cookies with some apple fruit topping or pie filling, whatever you want to call it. I'm putting this into a little blender. This is just our NutriBullet blender that we have at home. My husband uses it for protein shakes a lot. I use it for making iced coffee a lot. We just want to break this down and make it a little bit smaller. I'm using about 1/4 cup here. We just want these to be smaller bites of apples. That is going to give us our apple flavor. I'm going to scrape what's left off here too. Do y'all have the problem where you don't want to leave anything left on bowls or dishes? I can't stand to leave anything in the bowl. So the consistency of this is chunkier than a typical applesauce, but it is chopped up more finely now so that they'll be able to roll out in the cookies. Next, I'm going to add to this my butter and sugars, and we're going to cream those together in the mixer. I'm adding a cup of granulated white sugar. All the measurements will be in the description box below. And then I'm adding 1/4 cup of light brown sugar. You'll need 2 sticks of softened unsalted butter. I'm just throwing it all in and letting the mixer sort it out. I have a nice little old-fashioned sifter here. I'm going to sift 4 total cups of flour. Now only 3 fit in my sifter, so I'm going to start with 3 and then we'll do the last one and the rest of the ingredients. Now if you watched my last recipe video on pumpkin spice latte cookies, you'll remember the little flour fluffing trick I taught you with the butter knife. You just give that flour a good fluff, that way it's not all packed tight together. Now you can be really accurate and measure with a scale, but I like to just round off the top. After after giving that flour a good fluff. I find it's plenty accurate for me, but once you get the feel for baking, you'll be able to tell what ratios and all that your dough needs to be. If it looks a little wet and sticky, you can add a little bit more flour. If it looks a little dry and funky, you can add a little water to it. Okay, that's 3 cups. Now we're going to do the 4th cup of flour. A 1/3 cup of cornstarch. The cornstarch is going to keep this rollout sugar cookie recipe from spreading. If you decorate sugar cookies, you know that avoiding spreading with your cookies is the main thing when it comes to a good cookie recipe. You want them to taste good, but you want them to maintain that pretty decorating shape as well. I'm adding a 1/4 cup of y'all, a 1/4 cup of table salt would not be good in a cookie recipe. I'm adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to my flour. And we're going to be really generous with our cinnamon. We're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Now, I love cinnamon. I love any kind of fall warm spices like that. But if you're not as big a fan of cinnamon as me, my husband, he's a little bit not as crazy about the big flavors. So sometimes I leave some of those spices out for things that I'm making for him. You just kind of suit yourself and suit your taste. But this makes a beautiful kind of speckledy mixture that we're going to add just a little bit at a time to our creamed butter and sugar mixture. So I'm getting ready to roll this out between 2 sheets of parchment paper. Now you might find that this is a little bit more wet dough than you're used to. This is the consistency I have. The consistency and the wetness or dryness of your dough is going to differ depending on the humidity outside, the weather in your area, the type of flour you buy, and all the different factors that go into baking. So if your dough is a little bit wet, start with 1/4 cup of flour at a time and add flour until you feel like it's the right consistency. If it's a little bit dry, you might need to add a bit of water. I like to use plenty of flour on my Silpat mat just to make sure it doesn't stick. And I do about 1/2 to 1/4 of the dough at a time as I'm rolling. I also roll between a Silpat and a piece of parchment to keep it from sticking. And then we're gonna freeze the dough for 15 to 20 minutes before we cut out our shapes. Now, if you wanted to use this as a drop cookie dough, just grab an ice cream scoop, one of those little small ice cream scoops, and scoop it onto your tray lined with parchment. Don't even worry about freezing or cutting out. But if you do want to use these as cut out cookies, I recommend freezing first. Okay, now to cut out our cookies. This dough has been in the freezer for around 15-20 minutes. If you need to leave the dough in the freezer overnight, just grab it out of the freezer about 10 to 15 minutes before you're ready to cut. That way it can thaw a bit, because if it is in the freezer overnight, sometimes it gets a little bit hard to cut, but that's okay. You can just let it thaw a minute and it will be fine. So I've actually peeled both sides of the dough away from the parchment so that we just have one solid sheet of dough. And I'm going to be cutting out a few shapes that I'm going to be using to decorate some watercolor apple cookies next week. So be sure and tune in for that. If you aren't already, make sure that you're subscribed to my channel and that you've hit the little bell icon beside where it says to subscribe, because that will notify you each time I make a new video. That way you don't miss them. We can't be missing cookie recipes. Once these are cut out, I'm going to bake them at 375 for 7 to 8 minutes. Now, every oven is different, so you may want to set it for 6 the first time that you try this recipe, just to make sure that your oven doesn't run hot or cold. You're just going to have to kind of play it by ear that first time. What you're looking for on these cookies is for the tops to not be shiny anymore. I like to pull mine out as soon as the tops aren't shiny anymore, because I like mine just a little bit less done, but I have seen other cookie decorators who prefer their cookies to be a bit more golden brown on the bottom. It just depends on your preferences. Some people like that caramelized kind of flavor. I prefer as close to the raw cookie dough as I can get it, personally. But again, that's just a matter of preference. Now you can ice these with just plain old regular royal icing for decorating, or if you would like to kind of get a little bit adventurous, try something new, I love mixing up a little bit of powdered sugar, so about a cup of powdered sugar along with a couple tablespoons of whole milk, and then adding some brown sugar and some cinnamon to that, and just drizzling that over the top of the cookies. I think that always turns out really good. Alright, I'm going to pop these in the oven at 375. These turned out delicious. I don't normally try things on camera, but these are fantastic. I was a little worried that the apple wasn't going to come through, just from the 4th a cup of apple pie filling, but it does. You can really taste the apple and the cinnamon. It's like eating an apple pie in cookie form. We're going to be here a while. I found these little dried apple pieces at the local Piggly Wiggly today, and I just thought they were so pretty and looked so sweet. They make me think of my Granny Lorraine's house, my great-grandmother. She is known locally for her famous fried pies. She makes the best fried apple pies. She makes other flavors besides apple too, but apple's my favorite. So I thought we would try pressing a few of these dried apples into a pressed drop cookie. So I'm just going to find a small enough piece and kind of push it into the cookie. Hey y'all, I'm Sarah Grace. I'm a small town mama who started a cookie decorating business that allowed me the flexibility to work from home and spend more time with my kids. I created this YouTube channel as well as the SG Cookie Academy to teach you the cookie decorating you need in order to do the same. You can find info in the description on how to start decorating cookies like a pro as soon as this weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Ready to take your baking to the next level? Check out the SG Cookie Academy. Members get access to over 10 online cookie decorating classes with new classes added every month, as well as monthly live coaching in our member-only Facebook group. There's info in the first link in the description.